Dear students, in previous class we were discussing about second chapter, collection of data. So without collecting the data we cannot identify the problems and we cannot solve the economic problems. So that's why statistics tools are very important to collect the data, to present the data in the form of table, like to calculate the problems, to calculate the number of problems, everything. It is very useful. Statistics very important concept. So how we can collect the information to identify the problem, to solve the problem? First we have to collect the information. That is only we have to study in this chapter, that is collection of data. So in previous class we discussed about variables. Now we have to discuss about the meaning of data. Data is a tool. Data is a tool which helps in understanding problems by providing information. Simple. Data is a tool. Okay. Data is a tool which helps in understanding economic problems, helps in understanding the economic problems by providing information, because economic facts can study terms in numbers, through that only we can understand the economic problems. Through the help of statistics only we can identify the problems and we can solve the problems. So here data means nothing but it is a tool. Data is a tool which helps in understanding problems by providing information. Through the help of data only we can understand the problems and we can solve the problems. Okay. Then how there are many methods to collect of data or collection of data. So especially to collect data there are two sources. Especially we have to discuss about the sources of data. Sources of data. In yesterday class only I explained that in this chapter we have to study sources of data and mode of data collection. Very important. So in that source of data means which way. So what are the sources to collect information, to collect the data? So especially we have to collect data in two ways. One is primary data. Second one is secondary data. One is primary data, another one is secondary data. From the help of these sources only we can identify the problems, we can estimate the problems, we can solve the problems, and we can estimate what are the problems, what are the remedies. So what will happen, we have to calculate, we have to estimate with the help of these information. So especially the primary data, one is the primary data, another one is secondary data. So primary data, it's very important. So primary data, it is also called as a first-hand information. So what is the meaning of primary data? So what are the sources of primary data? So what are the advantages of primary data? What are the disadvantages of primary data? Everything we have to discuss one by one. Okay. First we have to discuss about the primary data. So after that only we should discuss about the secondary data. We are discussing about sources of data. Under that, first one is primary data. Okay, primary data is nothing but the investigator may collects the information. The investigator may collect the information. The investigator may collect the information through an inquiry or an investigation. So this is called as primary data. The investigator may collect the information through like an inquiry or an investigation. So this is called as primary data. In other words, the investigator collects the data or collect the data conducting an inquiry or an investigation Okay, such data are called primary data. Okay, we're discussing about sources of data. In that, first one is primary data. So primary data means the investigator. Investigator means the person who collects the information. Simple. Investigator means the person who collects the information. He is called as investigator or enumerator. Okay, enumerator or investigator. The investigator collects the data by conducting an inquiry or an investigation. Such data are called primary data. So investigator collect the data by conducting an inquiry. So inquiry means we have to collect the information by asking questions. Okay, to know any matter, to know anything about a particular place or particular person, that time we have to go and meet that person and visit the place. We have to collect the information. Okay, directly we should meet that person or directly we should visit that place. So in that time what we are collecting information directly, that is called as primary data. It is also called as first hand information. First hand information or first hand data. First hand information. First hand information or first hand data. Okay, so here the investigator may collect the information by conducting an inquiry and investigation. As you know that to know the popularity of a film star, that time we have to, how we know that? That is, we have to ask the questions with the people. Like, so whenever a new film, a new movie released, so at that time we have to ask the question, how is that movie? So like this, through questioning, asking questions. By asking questions only we can understand whether that movie is good or bad. As to know the popularity of a person, that time we have to ask the questions with like students, like adults, like young people, like adults only. We have to ask public. What for? To know the popularity of a person, to know the popularity, to check the popularity of a person. So this is called as primary data. Whatever, to collect the information we can use two methods. One is inquiry and another one is investigation. Through this one only we can understand the which one information, we can understand the what is that, okay, which way, so what are the problems, so how it is, okay, everything we can understand through the study of which one? Primary data. So with the help of primary data we can understand the problems, which one? Economic problems, because it is also called as first hand information. Here we have to collect information by visiting, by meeting, so we can understand the problems. So that is called as primary data. That is called as primary data. So in the primary data, we have to understand four basic ways. Four basic ways. So the investigator can collect the information in four ways. The investigator or enumerator collect the data or information in four ways. One is personal interview. Second one, mailing questionnaire. Third one, telephone interview. And fourth one, not that much of importance, that is pilot survey. Actually, in this chapter, we are going to study about the census also. Census, survey, everything we will discuss in this chapter. Okay? So, we are discussing about the primary data. Primary data, it is also called as a first-hand information. The investigator collects the data by conducting an inquiry or an investigation. Such data are called as primary data. So here, to know the popularity of person, to know the popularity of place, to know what happened, what is happening, to understand everything, we have to collect the information. Okay. So when with the help of methods of personal primary data. So under that, we have to follow few methods to collect the information. So what are the methods? What are the ways? That is personal interview. We have to meet that person personally, and we have to collect the information about a person or a place. Okay. Mailing questionnaire. Mailing questionnaire means, so that is by through email, through internet, we have to ask the questions. Then telephone. By phone only we have to ask the questions and we have to get the answers. Then pilot survey, that is pre-test survey. Pre-test. Okay, we will discuss one by one later. Then what about the meaning of secondary data? Okay, we will discuss in the next topic, like mode of data collection. Mode of data collection. So under this only we have to discuss one by one meaning of personal interview, meaning of mailing questionnaire, meaning of telephone interview, meaning of pilot survey. Everything we have to discuss, and also we have to discuss about the advantages and disadvantages of these are all topics. Okay, this is the information about primary data. The second source of data is secondary data. Secondary data. So secondary data means those data that have already collected, already collected from or by others. Those data that have already been collected by others. So this is not possible. It is not collecting the information directly. That is indirectly. We can say like that. We are collecting information from others. Okay, we are not visiting there to collect information. It is not first information. Primary data is the first hand information. So this is second hand data. Second hand data means we have to collect information from others. So something happened. Suppose on the way any problems are happened. So in this situation, we are coming like late. That time to understand, to know the problem what happened, we have to ask others. So when we are collecting information from others, that is called as secondary data. That is called as secondary data. So the secondary data, especially collecting in two ways. Are understanding? Secondary data that have already been collected by others. So when we are collecting information from others, that is considered as secondary data. When we are collecting ourselves, we only collecting the information directly, meeting or visiting, okay, through personal personal interview, mailing questionnaire, like pilot survey, telephone interview. So that is called as primary data. When we are collecting information from others, already it has collected from others, when we are getting information by others, that is called only secondary data. So under the secondary data, or we can collect the secondary data in two ways. One is published sources. Another one is unpublished sources. Okay. First we have to discuss about the published sources. Under the published sources, so which are already published, we are collecting from newspapers, like news channels, we are collecting from others. So that is called only, what is that? Secondary information. Under that we have to discuss published sources. So published sources means international publications. Under this, international publications. Government publications. Government publications. Reports of commissions and committees. Reports of commissions and committees. Fourth one, semi-publications or semi-government publications. Semi-government publications. Fifth one, newspapers, periodicals. Okay. These are all published sources under the secondary data. Okay. Especially to know the information about overall countries in the world, we can get through the help of international publications. So this is already published by others. Through that only we can understand what is going on, what is happening. So what happened, that is only international, to understand like other countries. So through that only we can understand the country's position, other country's position, that is international publications. Then government publication. Each and every country has a compulsory government. So about the country, about our home country, to know that what is going on, what is the information, what is the development rate, what is the growth rate, what is the popularity, what is the poverty. So everything we can understand through the help of government publications. So this is also collecting from others. Then reports of commissions and committees. There are separate commissions like departments, committees. Through that also we can understand the information when we are getting from others. Then semi-government, which are both. Semi means both private and public. Public means government. So these publications under the both public and private. So through this, that is also called as like PSUs, public sector undertakings, like BHEL, BEL, okay, HAL. So these are all coming under the semi-government. So these publications. Then newspapers, as you know that we can collect the information every day through the help of newspapers, and also we are getting like magazines, like informations, and also through channels. So these are all called published, printed. We are collecting from others. This is called as published sources. So under the unpublished sources, that is few persons like scholars, like researchers. So what they identified, what they investigated, they will not interested to print or publish. That means they are keeping themselves what they estimated, what they identified, what they written. That papers they can keep with themselves only for their purpose, their own purpose. That type of papers are considered as a unpublished sources. For example, if people are maintaining dairy, so what they identified, what they find, what their research, what they have innovated, everything they are not ready to publish, but they are keeping themselves only. They are keeping in dairies, books. Okay, they are not publishing. So they are considered as unpublished sources. Okay, this is published sources, this is unpublished sources under the secondary data. Okay. In next class we will discuss mode of data collection about the primary data, that is personal interview, mailing questionnaire, telephone interview and pilot survey. Thank you.